You ever watch three fake cops go white in the face when they realize the woman they're barking at is a federal agent and they're about 5 seconds from committing a felony on body cam? That was the day everything changed. It started like this. I was at work, my wife Alyssa was home with our daughter, and we were enjoying life in our new house on Tallow Ridge, a peaceful stretch of land outside the HOA line. Keyword, outside. That was the whole reason we bought there. No fees. No nosy committees. No surprise fines for painting your door the wrong shade of taupe. But that didn't stop Karen. Karen wasn't just a nosy neighbor, she was the self-appointed president of the West Tallow Ridge HOA technically. Her HOA governed 5 homes on the opposite cul-de-sac. Ours? Not included. But she didn't care. She'd already tried to demand voluntary compliance for our trash bins, lawn trimming, and even Alyssa's yoga mat being left out to dry on the porch. Alyssa, being Alyssa, politely declined. She even printed out the original zoning map and highlighted the property lines with color-coded notes. I should have known that wouldn't be the end of it. Last Tuesday, around noon, 3 people in what looked like knockoff security uniforms showed up in our driveway. Karen was with them, arms crossed, belly heaving, wearing a high-visibility vest like she was directing traffic at the Pentagon. They banged on the door, loud. Then they started pacing. Then they opened the gate and walked into the yard. Alyssa opened the door halfway, holding our baby on her hip. She didn't look scared, just annoyed. "Can I help you?" she asked, calm and direct. That's when Karen's voice hit its peak pitch. "This property is under citation. You've been repeatedly warned. We are now escalating enforcement." The 2 men flanking her, both clearly uncomfortable, started reading from a printed sheet that looked like it was copied off a Reddit forum titled, "How to Look Official." One even said, "Ma'am, you are non-compliant with HOA code subsection." Alyssa interrupted. She handed the baby her bottle, stepped forward, and said the words I'll never forget. "Gentlemen, I'm going to give you 5 seconds to leave my property before you find yourselves on federal record for impersonating officers. Would you like me to get my badge now or after I press record?" First, they scoffed. Then she reached into the diaper bag, pulled out her credentials, and flipped them open with military precision. The air changed. One of the men took a literal step back. Karen didn't move. She laughed until Alyssa held up her phone and started filming. "HOA has the right to protect," Karen started. "You have the right to remain silent," Alyssa cut in. "Because right now, you're violating USC Title 18 Section 912, impersonating a federal officer. I suggest you walk away. This entire exchange is now documented. And, by the way, we're not even in your HOA." Karen froze. The taller guy mumbled something about not knowing that, and the shorter one turned and bolted without a word. Karen looked around like she expected someone to step in. No one did. The silence was brutal. And that's when I pulled up in the driveway. I'd already gotten a heads up from our Ring alert that someone was on the property. When I saw the uniforms, I left work early and floored it. I didn't even have to say anything. Just stepped out, arms crossed, and nodded at my wife. Karen looked at us both like she'd seen a ghost. "We'll be filing a formal report," she hissed. Alyssa smiled. "Good. So will I. With the Bureau. Let's compare notes." Karen stormed off like a wounded walrus, shoulders puffed, red-faced and sweating. But the next part? That's when things really started to unravel, and not in the way she expected. 2 hours later, a squad car rolled into our street, not for us, but for a welfare check on Karen. Apparently, after our confrontation, she stormed back to her faux HOA headquarters, aka her garage office filled with dollar store clipboards and expired code manuals. From there, she started blowing up local dispatch lines, claiming we were threatening federal retaliation on community volunteers. She failed to mention, of course, that 2 of her volunteers were wearing fake law enforcement badges and trespassed on private property. The responding deputy knew Alyssa. Everyone in our county law enforcement circle did. She was the Bureau's community liaison trained in federal civilian affairs, hostage negotiation, and, ironically, neighborhood integrity fraud. When Karen realized the deputy wasn't taking her side, she flipped the narrative again. said we had joined her HOA without consent and were now trying to overthrow it. That claim was so absurd even the officer didn't try to write it down. Instead, he gently explained that if she stepped foot on our lawn again, she could be arrested for trespassing and that the HOA had zero legal jurisdiction over our property. But Karen wouldn't let it go. The next day, she plastered our street with flyers that read, "Community Warning. Federal Infiltrators in Neighborhood." She taped one to our mailbox, another to the windshield of our car, and even shoved one into our baby stroller. She'd officially crossed the line. So Alyssa did what she does best. She built a case. She compiled everything: the bodycam footage from the deputy, our Ring doorbell videos, HOA emails, photos of the impersonator uniforms, even Karen's little Most Trusted HOA President award she issued to herself in last year's fake newsletter. Then she called a special contact, Agent Ramirez, her bureau supervisor who'd handled similar impersonation cases involving veterans and postal service workers. In under 48 hours, an official investigation was launched. Karen had no idea what was coming. One of her enforcers, the same man who tried to read made-up statutes at our door, folded instantly when questioned. Said Karen promised them HOA officer stipends and had them swear in with printed citizens' oath cards she found on Pinterest. They admitted to entering 5 other properties in the last year. One homeowner had security cam footage of them checking his backyard shed and taking photos of his grill setup for fire code violations. Turns out, Karen had an entire fantasy jurisdiction mapped out on her iPad, where she had redrawn the actual zoning map to include properties that weren't in her HOA at all. She color-coded them green for compliant, yellow for future targets, and red for what she labeled as uncooperative units. We were red, of course, but the twist? One of those uncooperative units was the county assessor's vacation rental, and she had no idea until Ramirez brought it up in the Federal Review. When the assessor heard Karen had entered her property and photographed her patio furniture, she joined the legal complaint personally. Within a week, the hammer came down. Karen was arrested for impersonating a public official, conspiracy to harass federal employees, falsifying jurisdictional documents, and organizing an unlicensed paramilitary neighborhood force. Her mugshot hit local news like wildfire. The once proud president of West Tallow Ridge was now reduced to an orange jumpsuit and smeared mascara. Her HOA crumbled overnight. Half the residents had no idea what she'd been doing. Some hadn't even agreed to be in an HOA to begin with. They'd just been bullied into signing monthly checks. A class action suit formed almost instantly, and the remaining board voted to dissolve the HOA entirely. As for her 2 officers, they were offered plea deals in exchange for testimony, and they took them. But you want to know the best part? 3 months later, Alyssa was honored by the mayor and sheriff's department in a joint ceremony. Not for her badge but for her restraint, for standing her ground as a mother, a federal agent, and a citizen in the face of fake authority. Our street is peaceful now. No flyers, no fake patrols, just kids riding bikes and neighbors actually waving to each other again. Sometimes Alyssa jokes that the stroller is more powerful than her badge, and honestly, she's not wrong. We didn't pick this fight, but when it came to our doorstep, we answered. What would you do if a fake HOA tried to control your home and family? Was Alyssa's calm power the right way to handle it, or would you have done more? Let's hear your thoughts.